The office coffee machine hissed, spitting out weak espresso as Elena Martinez stood frozen, her heart pounding like a war drum. The whispers had started again, sharp, venomous hisses slicing through the hum of fluorescent lights at Pinnacle Marketing. "She's that kind of girl," someone muttered, loud enough for her to hear, loud enough to sting. Elena, 28, had always carried herself with quiet confidence, her tailored blazers and quick wit a shield against the world. But today that shield felt paper-thin. She'd overheard the snickers before coworkers dissecting her short chestnut hair, her unladylike ambition, her refusal to giggle at their crude jokes. It wasn't just that she was a lesbian. It was that she dared to exist openly in a glass-walled office in Manhattan where conformity was currency. She gripped her coffee cup, the heat burning her palm, and forced herself to walk back to her desk. The open-plan office buzzed with the clatter of keyboards and the occasional laugh, but to Elena it was a battlefield. Her cubicle, tucked near the window with a view of New York's skyline, was her only sanctuary. She sat, her hands trembling as she opened her laptop, trying to focus on the campaign pitch due tomorrow. But the words on the screen blurred as her mind replayed the latest jab. Why does she even bring her girlfriend to company events? It's unprofessional. The girlfriend in question was Sofia Delgado, 30, a freelance photographer with a smile that could disarm a hurricane. They'd met 2 years ago at a Brooklyn art gallery, where Sofia's photos of urban decay had captivated Elena's heart before Sofia herself did. Their love was a quiet rebellion, holding hands in public, sharing soft kisses at dimly lit bars, building a life together in a city that both celebrated and judged them. But at Pinnacle, Elena's openness about Sofia was a lightning rod. "Elena, you okay?" A voice broke through her thoughts. It was Mia, the only coworker who didn't treat her like a walking scandal. Mia, with her messy bun and kind eyes, slid into the chair beside Elena's desk. "I'm fine," Elena lied, her voice tight. She wasn't fine. The whispers had escalated over weeks, from subtle digs to outright hostility. Last Friday, someone had left a post-it on her monitor. "Keep your personal life private." The anonymity of it burned worse than the words. Mia leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I heard what they said at the coffee station. It's disgusting. You don't deserve this." Elena's jaw clenched. "I just want to do my job, Mia. I'm good at it. Better than half these people." She wasn't bragging. Her campaigns had landed Pinnacle 2 major clients this year. But talent didn't shield her from prejudice. That evening, Elena met Sofia at their favorite diner in the East Village. The neon sign buzzed outside, casting a pink glow over Sofia's face as she slid into the booth. "You look like you've been through a war," Sofia said, her green eyes narrowing with concern. Elena forced a smile. Just another day at the office. She didn't want to burden Sofia with the details, not when Sofia's own work was a constant hustle. But Sofia's hand reached across the table, her fingers intertwining with Elena's, grounding her. "Tell me," Sofia said softly. And so Elena did. She spilled the venomous words, the post-it, the suffocating feeling of being watched, judged, reduced. Sofia listened, her thumb tracing circles on Elena's hand, her silence a safe harbor. When Elena finished, Sofia's voice was steady but fierce. "You're not alone in this, Elle. We'll figure it out. Together." The word "together" was a lifeline. That night, as they walked home through the city's pulse, Elena felt a spark of defiance ignite. She wasn't the problem. They were. The next morning, Elena arrived at Pinnacle early, her stomach churning but her resolve hardening. She wore her sharpest blazer, her hair swept back, her chin high. If they wanted to make her feel small, she'd remind them she was anything but. The office was quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioning. She sat at her desk, reviewing her campaign pitch, a bold rebrand for a sustainable fashion line. It was her best work yet, and she'd be damned if she let the whispers derail her. But as colleagues trickled in, the air shifted. She caught sidelong glances, heard muffled laughter from the break room. Then, an email pinged in her inbox. Subject: friendly advice. Her heart sank as she opened it. The sender was anonymous, a burner account. "You should tone it down, Elena. Nobody wants to see your lifestyle in our faces. Focus on work." Her hands shook as she deleted the email, but the words seared into her mind. She glanced around, wondering who'd sent it. Was it Greg, the smarmy account manager who always lingered too long at her desk? Or Lauren, the team lead who'd once called Elena's pride pin distracting? By noon, the tension was unbearable. During a team meeting, Elena presented her campaign pitch, her voice steady despite the eyes boring into her. The room was silent when she finished, her slides glowing on the projector. Then Greg leaned back, smirking. "Great work, Elena. But maybe next time, leave the personal flair out of it." The room tittered. Elena's face burned, but she held his gaze. "My work speaks for itself, Greg. Maybe you should focus on yours." A few gasps, a few awkward coughs. The meeting ended in a flurry of papers and averted eyes. But as Elena returned to her desk, she felt a shift inside her. She wasn't just fighting for her job anymore. She was fighting for her right to exist. That night, Sophia met her at a rooftop bar, the city sprawling below them like a glittering dream. "You stood up to him," Sophia said, pride in her voice. "That's my girl." Elena sipped her wine, the weight of the day still heavy. "It's not enough, Soph. They're not going to stop. I need to do something bigger." Sophia's eyes gleamed with mischief. "Then let's make them listen." The idea came to Elena like a bolt of lightning on a sleepless night. She lay beside Sophia, the hum of their apartment's radiator mingling with the distant wail of a siren. She couldn't keep playing defense, absorbing the office's barbs like a punching bag. She needed to strike back, not with anger, but with something undeniable, something that forced them to see her. By morning she had a plan. It was risky, maybe even reckless, but it felt right. She kissed Sophia goodbye, her resolve stealing as she stepped into the crisp Manhattan air. At Pinnacle, she moved through the day with purpose, ignoring the usual whispers. Her campaign pitch had been approved, and she was set to present it to the client next week. But that wasn't enough. She wanted to shake the foundation of the office's toxic culture. In the break room, she overheard Lauren muttering to a colleague, "Elena's too out there. It's like she's rubbing it in our faces." Elena's blood boiled, but she kept her composure. Instead of confronting Lauren, she channeled her anger into her plan. She spent her lunch break drafting an email not to her coworkers, but to HR. It was calm, professional, but unflinching, detailing the harassment she'd faced. The post-its, the emails, the whispers. She didn't name names yet. She wanted them to sweat. That afternoon, she met Mia for coffee outside the office. "I'm going to HR," Elena said, her voice low but firm. "But I need to do more. I want to make a statement." Mia's eyes widened. "Like what?" "A speech in the middle of the office." Elena laughed, a spark of hope flickering. "Not quite. I'm thinking project. Something that forces them to confront their biases. Something they can't ignore." Mia leaned forward, intrigued. "I'm in. Whatever you need." Back at the office, Elena began laying the groundwork. She proposed a new internal campaign to her boss, Rachel, under the guise of promoting workplace inclusivity. Rachel, a polished woman in her 40s who preferred neutrality over conflict, hesitated. "It's a bold idea, Elena. Are you sure it's not too personal?" "It's not personal," Elena said smoothly. "It's about making Pinnacle a place where everyone feels valued." "That's good for business, right?" Rachel couldn't argue with that. She greenlit the project, unaware of the fire Elena was about to ignite. That evening, Elena and Sophia sat cross-legged on their living room floor, surrounded by takeout containers and Sophia's laptop. They brainstormed ideas for the campaign, which Elena had titled Faces of Pinnacle. The concept was simple but powerful. A series of employee profiles, videos, photos, and stories celebrating the diversity of the team. Elena would include herself, openly sharing her identity as a lesbian, framing it as a strength, not a scandal. Sophia, ever the visionary, suggested adding a visual component. "Let's make it beautiful," she said, her hands gesturing wildly. "Portraits of everyone, raw and real. I'll shoot them. We'll show the world who Pinnacle really is." Elena's heart swelled. "You do that? For you? I'd do anything." Sophia's smile was a promise, and Elena leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that tasted like courage. The next day, Elena began recruiting participants. Mia was the first to sign on, eager to share her story as a first-generation immigrant. Others were hesitant, wary of the spotlight, But Elena's passion was infectious. She spent late nights crafting interview questions, ensuring each profile would humanize her coworkers while subtly challenging their prejudices. But the whispers didn't stop. One morning, Elena found another post-it on her desk. "Nobody cares about your agenda." She crumpled it, her resolve hardening. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for anyone who'd ever felt silenced. By the end of the week, she'd secured 10 participants, including surprisingly Greg. He'd agreed with a shrug, saying, "Why not? I'm secure enough to be in your little project." His smirk suggested he thought it was a joke, but Elena didn't care. She'd use his arrogance against him. The first shoot took place on a Saturday, in a rented studio in Brooklyn. Sophia worked her magic, her camera capturing the raw humanity of each participant. Mia spoke of her parents' sacrifices. A quiet intern shared his struggles with anxiety. When it was Elena's turn, she sat under the soft lights, her voice steady but vulnerable. "I'm Elena Martinez, a marketing strategist, a New Yorker and a lesbian. My identity isn't a choice, it's a part of who I am, and it makes me better at what I do." Sophia's eyes shone with pride as she snapped the shot. That night, they edited the footage together, weaving stories into a tapestry of resilience. Elena felt a fire growing inside her. This wasn't just a project, it was a revolution. But trouble was brewing. On Monday, Lauren cornered Elena in the hallway. "I heard about your little diversity stunt," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're making this office a circus." Elena met her gaze, unflinching. "If telling the truth feels like a circus to you, maybe you're the one who needs to rethink things." Lauren's face reddened, but she stormed off. Elena knew the battle was far from over. The office was a powder keg, and Elena held the match. Her Faces of Pinnacle project was gaining traction, with whispers of a different kind now circling curiosity, unease, anticipation. She felt the weight of every stare as she walked through the office, her laptop clutched like a shield. But she wasn't backing down. The first video was set to debut at the company's quarterly meeting, a high-stakes event attended by the entire staff and the CEO, Margaret Chen. Elena had spent weeks polishing the footage with Sophia, ensuring every frame carried emotional weight. The profiles were raw, honest, beautiful, each one a mirror held up to the office's soul. Elena's own profile was the centerpiece, her voice steady as she spoke about love, identity, and resilience. But the closer the meeting loomed, the more the hostility escalated. Anonymous emails flooded her inbox, each one nastier than the last. "You're pushing too far. This isn't the place for your politics." One even called her a slur, the word burning into her like a brand. She reported them to HR, but the response was tepid. "We're looking into it." Sophia was her anchor. One night, as they lay tangled in bed, Sophia traced the lines of Elena's furrowed brow. "You're scared," she said softly. "Not of them," Elena replied, her voice barely a whisper. "Of failing. What if this doesn't change anything?" Sophia propped herself up, her green eyes fierce. "You're already changing things. You're making them see you. That's enough." But Elena wanted more than visibility. She wanted justice. The day of the meeting arrived, a crisp October morning that felt charged with possibility. Elena wore her best suit, her pride pin gleaming on her lapel. The conference room buzzed with nervous energy as employees filed in, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Greg sat near the front, his arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. Lauren avoided Elena's gaze entirely. Margaret Chen, a formidable woman with a reputation for fairness, opened the meeting with her usual remarks. Then she turned to Elena. "I understand you have a special presentation for us today." Elena's heart pounded as she stood, her laptop connected to the projector. "Thank you, Margaret. Today, I'm proud to share Faces of Pinnacle, a project celebrating the people who make this company what it is." The lights dimmed, and the first profile played Mia's, her voice warm as she spoke of her immigrant roots. The room was silent, absorbed. Then came the intern, his vulnerability disarming even the most cynical. When Elena's profile appeared, her face filling the screen, the air tightened. She spoke of her love for Sophia, her pride in her identity, the pain of being judged. "I'm here to do my job," her recorded voice said. "But I'm also here to be myself." And I won't apologize for that. The video ended and silence hung heavy. Then a single clap, Mia, her eyes shining. Others joined, hesitant at first, then louder. But not everyone was moved. Greg leaned back, whispering something to the man beside him, who laughed. Lauren's face was a mask of disgust. Margaret stood. Elena, this is powerful. I think we all have some reflecting to do. Her words were measured, but her gaze lingered on Greg and Lauren, a warning. After the meeting, Elena braced for backlash. Came swiftly. In the break room, Lauren confronted her again. You think you're some kind of hero? This is a workplace, not a soapbox. Elena's voice was steel. If my existence is a soapbox, then maybe you need to question why it bothers you so much. Lauren flinched but didn't back down. You're making people uncomfortable. Good, Elena shot back. Maybe they should be. The confrontation spread like wildfire. By afternoon, the office was divided. Some rallied behind Elena, inspired by her courage. Others doubled down, their whispers turning to outright complaints. HR called Elena in, their tone cautious. We've received concerns about your project, the manager said. Some feel it's divisive. Divisive? Elena's voice trembled with anger. What's divisive is being harassed for who I am. I'm not the problem here. The manager promised to investigate, but Elena left the meeting feeling hollow. That night, Sophia held her as she cried, the weight of the fight crashing down. I thought this would change things, Elena whispered. But it's just making them hate me more. Sophia kissed her forehead. You're not fighting for their love, Elle. You're fighting for your truth. And you're not alone. The next day, Elena found an ally in an unexpected place. Jake, a quiet designer who'd stayed out of the drama, approached her desk. I saw your video, he said, his voice low. My brother's gay. He went through hell at his old job. What you're doing. It matters. Elena's throat tightened. Thank you, Jake. He hesitated, then added, I know who sent those emails. I saw Greg on a burner account last week. The revelation hit like a punch. Elena thanked Jake, her mind racing. She had proof now, or at least a lead. The fight was far from over, but she was ready to push harder. Elena's world narrowed to a single purpose: expose the truth. Jake's revelation about Greg had lit a fuse, and she wasn't about to let it fizzle out. She spent the next morning gathering evidence, discreetly asking colleagues if they'd seen anything suspicious. Most were cagey, but Mia confirmed she'd overheard Greg bragging about teaching Elena a lesson. It wasn't airtight, but it was enough to take to HR. In the HR office, Elena laid out her case. The emails, the post-its, Jake's tip, Mia's testimony. The manager, a weary woman named Carla, listened intently. These are serious allegations, Carla said. We'll need to investigate thoroughly. Thoroughly. Elena's voice was sharp. I've been dealing with this for months. How much more do you need? Carla promised action, but Elena left the meeting skeptical. She'd heard promises before. Back at her desk, she focused on the next phase of Faces of Pinnacle. The second video was set to launch internally, featuring more profiles, including Jake's. He'd agreed to share his brother's story, a subtle jab at the office's bigotry. Sophia was relentless in her support, spending late nights editing footage, her passion matching Elena's. This is bigger than Pinnacle, Sophia said one evening, her laptop glowing in their dim apartment. You're showing people they don't have to hide. Elena nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. What if Sophia was wrong? What if this only made things worse? The second video dropped on a Wednesday, shared via the company's internal portal. It was another gut punch. Jake's quiet strength as he spoke of his brother's struggles, a senior strategist revealing her battle with depression, a janitor sharing his dreams of becoming an artist. The office was quieter this time, the whispers muted. Some approached Elena with cautious praise. Others avoided her entirely. But Greg wasn't done. During a team lunch, he leaned across the table, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Nice videos, Elena. Too bad they're just a distraction from your real agenda. The table fell silent. Elena's fork froze midair. And what's that, Greg? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. You know, he said, smirking. Turning this place into your personal pride parade. The words hit like a slap, but Elena didn't flinch. If standing up for myself is a parade, then maybe you should get used to the music. A few colleagues stifled laughs. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Greg's face reddened, but he backed off. Elena's heart raced, but she felt alive, unstoppable. That afternoon, HR called her in again. Carla's face was grim. We've traced the anonymous emails to an IP address linked to Greg's workstation. He's been suspended pending further investigation. Elena's breath caught. It was a victory, but it didn't feel like enough. Greg was a symptom, not the disease. The office's culture, its unspoken rules, its quiet prejudices still festered. She threw herself into the final phase of her project. A company-wide event to showcase all the profiles, complete with a panel discussion on inclusivity. Rachel, her boss, was hesitant but agreed, sensing the momentum building behind Elena. Margaret Chun herself would attend, a sign that the higher-ups were paying attention. The event was set for Friday, in the office's sleek auditorium. Sophia and Elena spent every spare moment preparing, from designing posters to rehearsing Elena's opening speech. Sophia's photos would be displayed on massive screens, each portrait a testament to the humanity of Pinnacle's staff. But the night before the event, disaster struck. Elena received a call from Rachel. Someone had vandalized the auditorium. Posters were torn down, screens smashed, and a single word was spray-painted across the stage: freak. Elena's knees buckled as she stood in the wrecked auditorium, Sophia's arm around her. "This is my fault," Elena whispered, tears burning her eyes. "No," Sophia said fiercely. "This is their fear, not your failure. We're fixing this. Together." They worked through the night, cleaning the auditorium, reprinting posters, borrowing equipment. Mia and Jake showed up to help, along with a handful of others who'd been touched by the project. By dawn, the auditorium was restored, imperfect but standing. Friday morning, Elena stood before the packed auditorium, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "This project isn't about me," she began, her eyes sweeping the crowd. "It's about us. About who we are, who we love, what we fight for. It's about building a workplace where no one has to hide." The room was silent, then erupted in applause. Margaret Chun stood, her expression unreadable but her clap resounding. The videos played, each story hitting harder than the last. When Elena's profile appeared, she felt Sophia's hand squeeze hers backstage. But the panel discussion was where things ignited. Elena moderated, fielding questions with grace, even as Lauren challenged her. "Isn't this project just promoting your lifestyle?" Lauren asked, her tone icy. Elena smiled, unshaken. "It's promoting truth. If that scares you, maybe it's time to ask why." The room buzzed and Lauren sat back, silenced. The auditorium pulsed with a strange energy after the panel, a mix of awe and unease. Elena stood at the edge of the stage, her hands still trembling from the intensity of the moment. She'd done it, their project had landed, her truth laid bare. But as the crowd dispersed, she braced for what came next. Change didn't come quietly. Margaret Chun approached her, her presence commanding. "Elena, that was remarkable. I want to discuss next steps with you and HR on Monday." Elena nodded, her throat tight. "Thank you, Margaret." But the real victory came in the days that followed. HR's investigation concluded, and Greg was fired, his actions deemed a violation of company policy. Lauren received a formal warning, her role as team lead quietly reassigned. The anonymous emails stopped and the post-its vanished. It wasn't perfect, some coworkers still avoided Elena's gaze. But the air felt lighter, the whispers softer. Faces of Pinnacle didn't just change the office, it changed Elena. She'd walked into Pinnacle every day feeling like she had to shrink, to apologize for her existence. Now she stood taller, her pride pin a badge of defiance. The project became a company-wide initiative, with plans to roll it out to other branches. Margaret even hinted at a promotion, though Elena cared less about the title than the impact. One evening, weeks later, Elena and Sophia sat on their apartment's fire escape, the city's lights sprawling below them. Sophia handed her a glass of wine, her smile soft. "You did it, Elle. You changed the game." Elena shook her head. "We did it. I couldn't have gotten through this without you." Sophia leaned in, her lips brushing Elena's. "You're my hero, you know that?" Elena laughed, the sound light and free. "I'm no hero. I just got tired of hiding." They sat in silence, the city's heartbeat syncing with their own. Elena thought of the auditorium, the word freak painted across the stage, and how she'd turned that hate into something beautiful. She thought of Mia's loyalty, Jake's quiet support, the colleagues who'd started to see her not as a scandal but as a person. The fight wasn't over. Prejudice didn't vanish overnight. But Elena had carved out a space where she could breathe, where she could love Sophia without shame. And that was enough. On Monday, Elena walked into Pinnacle with her head high, her blazer crisp, her heart full. The office wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And she'd made it better not just for herself, but for anyone who'd ever felt like they didn't belong. As she sat at her desk, a new email pinged in her inbox. It was from a junior employee, a shy woman named Tara. "Thank you for your project. I'm queer and I've never felt safe being open here. You've given me hope." Elena's eyes stung as she typed a reply. "You're not alone. We've got this." She hit send, then leaned back, a smile spreading across her face. The office might never be the same, and neither would she. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.